According to the Zondervan Bible Dictionary, the definition of Ham is he's the youngest son of Noah, born probably about 96 years before the flood, and one of the 8 persons to live through the flood. He became the progenitor of the dark races, not the Negroes, but the Egyptians, Ethiopians, Libyans, and Canaanites. The ancient Egyptians were like the Negroes. That's why, or should I say, look like the Negroes, and that's why this definition is separating the Negroes from them, because even though they look alike, the Negroes don't come from Ham. They're not the same people, even though they're black. They're not the same people. Moses married an Ethiopian woman. Also, it tells you when Jacob passed away and they were going to bury him in Genesis 50, verses 7 through 11, that the people of the land thought that they were Egyptians. They didn't separate Israelite from Egyptian. They thought that, it says in verse 11, and when the inhabitants of the land, the Canaanites, saw the mourning in the floor of Atad, they said, this is a grievous mourning to the Egyptians. Okay. And we know that the Canaanites and the Egyptians come from Ham. And they look like the Negroes. But the Negroes don't come from Ham. So these are all black people. Even when you look at Nimrod, who ruled the earth at one point, when you have Babylon, where they was trying to build where they started building the Tower of Babel, Nimrod is grandson of Ham. Means he's black. And Abraham's father, Terah, actually was second under Nimrod. Now, Abraham comes from Shem. Because it tells you in the book of Joshua, yes, Noah and Shem were still alive during the reign of Nimrod. During when they were building the Tower of Babel and all of that, they were alive. And Terah took Abraham and his mother to a cave. And when he became like around 10 years old, he went and stayed with Noah and Shem. And they taught him their ways. So according to the Bible, Shem begat Arphaxad or Arphaxad, and he begat Salah, and Salah begat Eber, which the word Hebrew comes from Eber. And then Eber begat Peleg, and Peleg begat Reu, and Reu begat Serug or Serug, and then he begat Nahor, and Nahor begat Terah, and Terah begat Abraham. So that's why he took him to live with Noah and Shem in the book of Jasher. It tells you that because that was his great grandfathers. So when you think about the lineage, and how when you think of the lineage down to Jacob and how Leah and Rachel were actually sisters, and how, they bear sons, and Benjamin, who actually Paul said he came from Benjamin, in Romans 11, chapter 11, verse 1. And then Moses actually came from Levi, and both of them, Leah begat Levi with Jacob, and Rachel begat Benjamin with Jacob. And you get in Acts 13:1 when the people in Antioch was calling Paul and some other disciples and teachers, calling them Niger. The word Niger translates to black, and also the word Negro translates to the word black. So you have the Negroes that look like the children of Ham, and then you have some Israelites, because if Paul comes from Benjamin and Moses comes from Levi, and Rachel and Leah were sisters, and Jacob, we know that his great grandfather Abraham, through Shem and on up to Noah, who's the father of Ham, who was the progenitor of the dark races, they were all black people. They were being called black. According to Acts 13, they were being called Niger. And there are some people in the earth today that are called Negroes, though they've changed the names. And also, the word Niger is where you get the word nigger. They just added an extra G on it, meaning black. So there's people in the earth that identify with these names today. So the Negroes of today actually come from Shem, not Ham. And the Zondervan Bible Dictionary, the scholars that put that Bible dictionary together, actually identified the Negroes with the children of Ham, but to say they were different. So I just wanted to touch on that. And there's things that happen in the Bible where the Most High showed his people were black people, like the leprous laws, and also when Moses actually married an Ethiopian woman. And we know the ancient Ethiopians, or the Ethiopians in general, are actually black people. There's even a scripture that says in Jeremiah 13 and 23, can the Ethiopian change his skin? Or the leopard his spots? Nope, obviously not. So Miriam had a problem with that, and the Most High turned her white as snow, leprous. And it was so extreme that Moses begged the Most High to turn her back. And also he told Moses to perform a miracle in front of Pharaoh by putting his hand to his bosom and his hand turning leprous, and then putting it back to his bosom and it turning back to the other flesh. We know the ancient Egyptians were black people from Ham, and they were identical to each other because the Canaanites of the land thought that it was all Egyptians going to bury Jacob. They didn't know. They didn't separate the Egyptians from the Israelites that were going to bury Jacob in Genesis 50 verses 7 through 11. So at this point, we know Deuteronomy chapter 28, there's a people in the earth that those prophecies or those curses fit perfectly. So people can deny and try to change stuff. Even the Messiah comes from Judah. Judah and Levi come from the same mother and father. And their brother Benjamin come from Rachel. Joseph came from Rachel as well. And those are sisters. And Joseph blended in with the Egyptians, because when his brothers came, they didn't even recognize him. And until he revealed himself to them. Now, if they were white amongst these people, that would have never been, they would have knew. It's just ridiculous to even think at this point that the Hebrew Israelites of the Bible are anything but black people, and specifically the children of the slaves that ancestors went into slavery on ships, according to Deuteronomy 28. Those curses fit perfectly. And it's so much to prove that the black Americans, are of those people. So at this point, anybody teaching otherwise is uninformed or in denial. But the Hebrew Israelites are the children of the black American slaves that were scattered throughout the four corners of the earth, that had their history erased and whitewashed to hide who they are, and were being told in church they were from Ham. But we're not from Ham. We know who we are. And at this point, other nations, people from other nations trying to tell us otherwise is just going to look foolish. I've come across some Hebrew Israelites that their families didn't go into slavery, so they still have the Torah on scrolls and have things that were passed down, artifacts and things. I've come across 2 particular families that had things passed down. So you can't tell them that they're from anywhere else, because they have proof. They have things that were passed down because their families didn't go into slavery. But I just wanted to kind of make some things clear. Peace.